Hello everyone and welcome to Friday Night Countdown from Villainous Lair Gaming here in San Diego. Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall with you as we wrap up the final Pro Tour of the 2012-2013 season, Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. What a great weekend, BDM.
It was terrific. The constructed format for this event was the full Return to Ravnica block constructed format, and we got to see a lot of cards from Dragon's Maze take center stage.
I want to start by asking you about Renounce the Guilds, because it looks like a pretty innocuous little card.
It's actually a very difficult card to play in Return to Ravnica block constructed because there's so many gold cards, so each player has to sacrifice a multicolored permanent. Well, it's difficult when you have multicolored permanents also, but we did see an Azorius control deck that was able to take full advantage of it.
A huge creature up next. Talk to me about Sire of Insanity.
Sire of Insanity would be good just as a huge creature, but when both players have to discard their hands, it renders Sphinx's Revelation almost useless. So that was a big deal.
Here's another big deal. Blood Baron of Vizkopa.
Well, we heard a lot of players likening this to Baneslayer Angel, a card that Brian Kibler once famously won a Pro Tour with. And I think that tells you a lot about this card, a card that all the red decks were terrified of this weekend.
Sometimes cards that look like they're good are just good, and everyone knew coming in that Advent of the Worm was just good.
Yeah, I mean, this is an instant speed 5/5 trampler. Craig Wesco won the Pro Tour playing this card in his deck, and if you watch that final game where he secured the victory, you really get an idea of how powerful this card really is.
Probably a bit less obvious was a 6-mana card, Deadbridge Chant. What was that about?
Yeah, Rob Castellan is a level 2 judge who was playing in his first Pro Tour, and all these super teams that were at this event, hammering away at the format, it was Rob who found this card, Deadbridge Chant, which can let you put a creature into play from your graveyard for free, or draw an extra card from your graveyard each turn. Just a tremendous card. I'm really excited to see what this card is going to be in the future.
The new mechanic in Dragon's Maze was Fuse, using split cards, and perhaps the one that was most prevalent at the Pro Tour was Far and Away.
Yeah, it was easily the most powerful removal spell that we saw. You get to bounce something and force your opponent to sacrifice something. It was a staple card for the Esper control decks. Really just powerful.
I discovered a new phrase at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, Sin Collector Beatdown. Really?
Yeah, Esper Control was one of the most prevalent decks. We talked about it a couple times already. If you didn't have Sin Collector, you were at a decided disadvantage in that matchup. Lets you get a look at your opponent's hand. It lets you take an instant or sorcery out of it and exile them, and you're not going to win a counter war if you're not setting that up with Sin Collector.
The first part of Legion's initiative is pretty straightforward, but the second part, BDM, what's all that text about?
Yeah, there's a big block of text there, but that text is an almost unprecedented ability for a weenie beatdown deck like the Boros Splits deck that we saw in the top 8. On one side it's like a crusade pumping your creatures, but it also gives you a way to effectively counterspell a Supreme Verdict, an uncounterable spell, I might add.
Did you see coming into the event just how good Aetherling was going to be?
So anytime a card ends in Ling, you have to think it's going to be good. But Aetherling was so good that it might even be better than the original Morphling that it's inspired by.
No prizes for guessing our top card of the weekend, though. It's Voice of Resurgence.
Yeah, I mean, it was the top card on everyone's list coming in, and it's still the top card going out. Again, Craig Wesco won the tournament with 4 copies of this in his deck, but I mean, it was in a lot of different decks. It was in Rob Castellan's Deadbridge Chant deck, for example. And it just lets you recuperate from a Supreme Verdict so cleanly. You get a creature. We saw it impaired with Experiment 1. And so, you still had 4 power of creatures after a Supreme Verdict. It was just an amazing card.
So those are some of the best cards coming out of Dragon's Maze, but what did the pros actually do with them? Well, let's check out what the best in the business did in our deck text feature.
Pro Tour Dragon's Maze champion Craig Wesco found the perfect guild to support his white weenie strategy in Selesnya. Voice of Resurgence and Advent of the Worm were both powerful counterpunches to Supreme Verdict, which was at the heart of the control-dominated field.
Esper Control was the most played strategy at the Pro Tour, and top 8 competitor Matej Zatlkai showcased the suite of tools Dragon's Maze added to Control's arsenal. Facing down a resolved Aetherling, even 4 points of damage from Shocklands could leave an opponent in danger of losing 2 turns after it hit the battlefield.
Aggressive strategies are easy to learn, but take a lifetime to master. Patrick Sullivan has made his career playing cheap creatures and finding exactly 20 points of damage in the early turns of a game. He walked us through the Boros Blitz deck that was similar to the one played by Josh Utter-Layton to a top 4 finish. The only thing this deck likes seeing in its opening hand, more than a Burning Tree Emissary, is 2 Burning Tree Emissaries.
While most of the pro teams thought they had the format mapped out, Level 2 judge and Pro Tour first-timer Rob Castellan came out of left field with a rogue deck that showcased the power of Deadbridge Chant and Sire of Insanity to a perfect Day 1 record and a top 8 finish.
For a different take on the Selesnya Guild, look no further than this deck tech with Ali Antrazi, which showed off the power of the Populate mechanic, using cards like Advent of the Worm and Voice of Resurgence, but also using Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage and Scion of Vitu-Ghazi to amass an army backed by Collective Blessing.
Chris Fennell took an aggressive approach to the format, taking the best creatures from both the Boros and Selesnya guilds and putting them on display in San Diego Zoo. He also had powerful openings with Burning Tree Emissary, as well as the ability to combat control decks with Domri Raid and Voice of Resurgence.
We always knew we would reach Maze's End in San Diego, but we did not know it would be this literal. Kenny Oberg and the rest of the Swedish team of players sensed the shift towards control in the metagame, and decided to play a deck with an uncounterable win condition. Maze's End and 10 different gates, backed by all the removal in Ravnica, allowed them to play a game that was vastly different from the one everyone else in the room was playing.
So there we are, BDM. We can see the real impact of Dragon's Maze.
Yeah, there's some great ideas for Standard now and when the format rotates later this year.
So now it's your turn. Get down to your local game store and start brewing with Dragon's Maze. All the drafting news from Pro Tour Dragon's Maze as Friday Night Countdown continues. Here at Villainous Lair Gaming in San Diego, Booster Draft is super popular, and now here on Friday Night Countdown, it's time to talk about the limited format. The thing is, Dragon's Maze, Gatecrash, Return to Ravnica, you've got 10 guilds, and that, BDM, makes the draft format pretty challenging.
Sure, and all 10 guilds are present in Dragon's Maze, and knowing which 5 are in Gatecrash and which 5 are in Return to Ravnica is essential to navigating the format successfully.
There are some really big questions to be asked. Where do you get the signals from? Where do you take gatekeepers? What about the gates themselves? Are you playing 2-color, 3-color, 5-color? So much to look at.
Well, certainly as far as gatekeepers and gates, you want to take the gates first.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, if there's no gates left, when they're going around the table, the gatekeepers will follow and end up in your pile at the end of the pack.
Nice. Well, we're going to take a look at how 2 of the best players in the world navigated their way through the 3 packs to a perfect 3-0 record. And BDM, we want to start with Dennis Rashid, twice a Pro Tour top 8 competitor.
Yeah, Dennis goes into the Dragon's Maze draft format really looking to be open. He wants an aggressive deck, he likes attacking, but really he's going to take what the packs give him.
Alright, so we open Dragon's Maze. How did he begin?
Well, he saw Flesh and Blood, which for him is a very powerful card. It's one of the new split cards with the fuse mechanic. He likened it to a fireball. And he said, this is a very powerful card, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to see what else happens now for the rest of the pack.
And what did happen? What was his second pick?
Well, the second pick's a pretty big signal in that he got a Corrosive Gorgon. And this to him is saying Golgari is going to be open when we get all the way back to Return to Ravnica.
Okay, now why when we get to Return to Ravnica? Why not Gatecrash?
Well, Golgari is an in-gate crash.
Right.
It's one of the 5 guilds that's in the Return to Ravnica pack, which you draft 3rd in this format.
Of course, if you are going to set up the Dragon's Maze into Return to Ravnica strategy, that does mean that sometimes you have to take some kind of okay cards rather than the most powerful cards in the pack. So, for example, he took a pair of Crawl Warriors, somewhere in the middle of pack 1.
Crawl Warrior is a terrific card. First of all, it only costs green mana, which means you're staying flexible and open. Maybe there's Simic cards in the Gatecrash pack that you want. You haven't overcommitted to one guild or another. But it's also a 2-drop, which If you remember us talking about during Gate Crash, 2 drops are super essential in this draft format. But it also has the ability to pump itself for 6 mana, +3/+3, and that lets it trade up for bigger creatures in the mid and late game.
And late games can go really late. We're in a world of 6 and 7 and 8 drops being perfectly acceptable, which is great. Nice to switch it up a little. Now, he got the payoff with Golgari in pack 3. Craig Wesco, though, took a very different approach, which ultimately led to him making the top 8 of Pro Tour Dragon's Maze.
Well, we've watched Craig Wesco these past couple years, and we know that he likes to be very aggressive. We know he likes cheap creatures, he likes versatile threats, and he ended up being Rakdos in this draft. In fact, he was Rakdos in both his drafts, and he went 6-0 with that strategy.
Mm-hmm. So how did that begin for him?
Well, he was Rakdos right out of the gate, and he got a 3rd pick Spike Jester, which is a staple card in a Rakdos strategy. And getting that 3rd pick, he had to know that Rakdos was going to be coming to him in Return to Ravnica.
And when you open up Exava Rakdos Blood Witch, that's a pretty nice gift to you on the 3rd pick. But again, the Gate Crash booster, pretty meager just because it isn't a Rakdos pack.
Right. You think about maybe there's a 3rd color in the form of another guild that you can splash, but really then you're looking for red cards and black cards. You're looking, and a pair of Madcap skills played perfectly into the Rakdos strategy.
He went 3-0. He went 3-0 with Rakdos in his other draft. So that's how just 2 of the big names in the game navigated their way to a perfect 3-0 record. But how about 14 more? Well, you can check out the draft viewer for the likes of Martin User, Louis Scott Vargas, Hall of Famer Gabriel Nassif. They're all there for you to look every pick from every pack on dailymtg.com. Next on Friday Night Countdown, the end of season awards and a look ahead to the World Championship. We've had a terrific day here at Villainous Lair Gaming in San Diego, but everything has to come to an end, including the 2012-2013 Pro Season. Before we go, BDM, we've got to tell everyone about all the goodies we gave away yesterday, starting with the Player of the Year award to Josh Utter-Leighton.
Yeah, Josh Utter-Leighton is a tremendous player. He earned his 4th Pro Tour top 8 in just 5 seasons of playing on the Pro Tour, and the Player of the Year trophy.
Josh was pretty emotional, as you'll hear, as he claimed his award.
Josh, fantastic stuff. You've had many great days in Magic over the last few years. Where did yesterday rank as you saw Player of the Year come into view?
At the very, very top. Yeah, it didn't come. Nothing else came close to it. Especially with all my friends doing super well in the tournament too. Luis locking up platinum. It was the very top.
Let's talk a bit about friends. You have a terrific group of friends who also turn out to be fantastic Magic players. What is it like inside Team Channel Fireball?
It's awesome. It's just hanging out with all of my closest friends. That's really what we are. We're a group of friends who love playing Magic, and so we get to do that together. It's fantastic.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Player of the Year, Josh Utter-Leighton.
The Rookie of the Year award went to Felipe Tapia Becerra of Chile.
Yeah, it was the first time that award went to someone hailing from Latin America, and that was obviously very meaningful to him as he accepted his award.
It really was. Let's take a listen.
What does it mean then for the Chilean Magic community and for Latin America to have a Rookie of the Year?
Ojalá que todos se den cuenta de que sí se puede y de que ser el primer latino en ser en un rookie y colocar el nombre de Chile es un orgullo gigantesco.
He wants to tell everyone from Latin America that so they can see that you can do it. And it's an honor to be the first Latin American and the first Chilean person to be the Rookie of the Year.
We're cheering for him in Chile and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rookie of the Year, Felipe Tapia Becerra.
That brings us to the Pro Tour champion for Dragon's Maze. That, of course, was Craig Wesco.
Yeah, Craig's been playing Magic for a long time. This was his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, and it was really his breakout performance.
Wasn't just a huge deal for him, was a huge deal for his teammates as well.
Craig, a fantastic performance. How much do you like California Pro Tours?
That's best place to have a Pro Tour.
Last 3, top 8 every time, and now with the trophy.
Yeah, White Weenie, I stuck with it, and it has given me what I needed every time.
You've been playing for absolutely ever. Tell us what it was like the moment you knew in that final game that you were about to claim that trophy.
I just thought of my team, how this is the first time where I really felt like I had the best team in the world as my team.
Can't say more than that. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, Craig Wescoe.
Craig Wescoe didn't just win the Pro Tour, he also qualified for the World Championship. 16 players in heated competition. BDM, let's look at the competitors. We begin with Yuya Watanabe.
Yeah, Yuya Watanabe's won just about everything there is to win in the game. He's been the Rookie of the Year, he's been the Player of the Year, and he had an amazing season.
Anyone who wins a Pro Tour has a great season, so that means Stanislav Sivka of the Czech Republic. He won Pro Tour Return to Ravnica with his Eggs deck.
Yeah, he brought his chess background to playing that complicated deck at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this field of 16.
You mentioned chess there. Talk to me about Tom Martell, the Pro Tour Gatecrash winner.
Well, you only have to look at how he navigated that top 8 with the incredibly complicated Aristocrats deck, and you could see his chess background at work.
Our third Pro Tour champion, of course, is Craig Wescoe, the winner of Dragon's Maze. Now, Dmitry Butakov may not be a name you all know. Well, he was our Magic Online champion, and we had the privilege of watching him at work in Boston earlier this year.
Yeah, at PAX East for the Magic Online Championship. Just a tremendous player. Going to be interesting to see if he can be the next Magic Online player to make that transition to physical competition.
By becoming Player of the Year, Josh Utter-Layton qualifies for the Magic World Championship. And BDM, I know you have him among the early front runners.
Just the way he's been playing, the way his teammates talk about him when they're, this great group of players and they all kind of single Josh Utter-Layton out, you have to expect great things from him.
The leading Latin American representative is Brazil's Willie Adel.
You did a great interview with him where he really talked about his early success on the Pro Tour, and he's having that success again right now.
In Asia Pacific, the lead representative is Li Shi-chan of Hong Kong.
You might remember him from the top 8 of Pro Tour Return to Ravnica, and he's going to be looking to build on that momentum this year.
Someone who was very emotional when they made the top 8 of Pro Tour Gatecrash was Eric Froelich.
Yeah, Eric has kind of a ridiculous win percentage on the Pro Tour, and he's got to be another person that you're really looking at to take it to the next level at the World Championship.
If you wanted to learn how to draft, you could do a lot worse than Ben Stark.
Yeah, Ben Stark is someone whose name is being thrown around a lot right now for Hall of Fame consideration.
Here's another Hall of Famer for you, Brian Kibler.
Brian Kibler already has 2 Pro Tour titles. Can he add World Champion to that list of accomplishments?
Shahar Shenhar is a pretty new name to the Magic community, but he's got 4 Grand Prix top 8s already, and he's still only 18-19.
Yeah, and he recently became a member of Team Channel Fireball, and if they have that kind of respect for him, then you got to watch out for this player.
Someone who's in the conversation for Hall of Fame this year is Martin User of the Czech Republic.
Yeah, Martin has 2 Pro Tour top 8s and has been an absolute monster on the Grand Prix circuit.
Another top 8 from Return to Ravnica, this time it's Channel Fireball's David Ochoa.
David Ochoa playing Magic for a long time, breakout performance, and an amazing season.
The field is rounded out by Reed Duke.
Reed Duke had the best performance of his Pro Tour career this weekend at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze when he finished 9th. He's a former Magic Online champion, and he'll be looking to add the title of World Champion to his resume.
And you can see all the drama of the World Championship unfold as these 16 go head-to-head from Amsterdam beginning July 31st. But until we meet again here on Friday Night Countdown from Villainous Lair Gaming in San Diego, for Brian David-Marshall, I'm your host Richard Hagon, saying bye.